I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds, and people give up when they don't see results in 2 months. Usain Bolt. DC Tribe, Josh Thomas. Glad to have you. To make sure you don't miss another episode, be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Also, if you're looking to better understand how you get stuff done, head over to dozonedna.com and take our personality profile assessment built specifically for busy entrepreneurs. It'll show you how to build your world around you for optimal performance. Once again, that's dozonedna.com. Today's guest, you're in for a really special treat, Tanner Chittister. Founder and CEO of Elite CEOs, Tanner Chittister has generated close to $50 million in sales in the online coaching world. After discovering powerful, repeatable strategies, which he used to create his first million in a B2C fitness model, Tanner's success went on to disrupt the coaching industry forever. Tanner, welcome to the Do Zone. Say what's up to the tribe and tell us something you believe is the key to getting stuff done that most people wouldn't think of.
Yeah, Josh, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be here. Hello, everyone. The number one thing I found was just getting up and starting your tasks. I had a time in my life where I would get up and I would meditate for an hour and I would read and I would like listen to audiobooks and that's not bad things to do, but by the time I would finish, I'm 3 hours in. And so the number one hack for me was just going from waking up and kind of doing all these kind of pre-rituals and just diving right into the work. And that's done wonders for me because I can get so much work done in the early hours of the morning that I feel, most people can't get done in an 8-hour day.
It's fascinating. I hear so many people starting to talk about the power of getting up early. I've never, ever been a morning person. It's just like, no, dude, I really I'm a salsa dancer. And so it's like, man, salsa socials don't start till like 11.
Right.
But recently I realized I'm a busy dude. I'm focused. I'm building stuff. I can't be getting up at like 8:30 in the morning because the day's halfway over.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the shift and then I realized like, wow, there's an extra 2 hours I had no idea I had. What do I do? What do I fill that with? Why don't I write? Why don't I read? Why don't I do this stuff? Do you have any tips for maybe somebody that hasn't drank the Kool-Aid yet of getting up early and getting that bonus time?
Yeah, well, I mean, first in people's defense who wake up late. I mean, you don't have to wake up early. I mean, there's definitely people who they don't and they can get away with it, and they still do amazing things. They're super successful. But the thing I like about the morning and the reason that I'm motivated to do it is because that's the one time of the day that I find is my own, and no one's like blowing up my phone or messaging me, etc. And with that being said, you can turn your phone over, shut your Slack channel down, etc. But I just find it's a lot more easy for me to focus when I know for a fact, like no one else is up, everyone else is asleep, no one's bothering me, and I could just focus on the biggest task. And so I don't know if there's a hack other than like set your bedtime. I don't think you need to necessarily set your like wake up time, but I think, for me, I need about 7 hours of sleep to feel my best. I can run off 6, but I need about 7. And so for me, if I'm trying to wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., that tells me when I need to set my alarm to go to bed. And that seems to work a lot better for me than like forcing myself to wake up at a certain time off, a lack of sleep. Because if you start not sleeping, what ends up happening is the work that you would have done, it's not as productive anyways. So really, I think I would just tell people set a alarm before you go to, or like your time to go to bed versus like waking up. And then I usually will just sleep until I wake up, and then I feel like super refreshed and I get as much rest as my body needs, and then I kind of attack my day.
Nice. Yeah. And then you're ready to go. So, hey, I see an awful lot of Tukama awards there behind you.
Yeah.
I know you got your start in fitness. And the majority of our audience are entrepreneurs. Some of them are trying to get their first break. Some of them are doing $1, $2, $5 million businesses, and they're trying to, add a zero. Take us back just for educational purposes to that very first hustle. How did you get into this? How did you get that first business off the ground? What were some of the, highs and lows of that experience?
Yeah, so a lot of lows before any highs.
What?
That
What? Come on.
actually there's quite a few. So I got my whole start in the business was I, wanted to be an NFL football player. So from about 12 to 22, that was my life. I trained for 10 years, multiple hours a day, that's all I did. And around 22 is when it kind of ended for me. It was a mixture between injury and then probably I wasn't good enough either way, or I just would have been, I might have made the NFL, but I wasn't going to be a top draft player. So when that ended, I remember going home and I sat down and had lunch with a family friend of my dad's, and he actually is related to Russell Brunson's cousin. He's married to her. And so that he kind of, hey, why are you going to school? And I was like, I just want to get paid a lot. And he's like, man, you make a lot more money not going to school. So he convinced me to drop out, and he taught me how to build funnels, what email lists were. I didn't know what opt-in pages were. It was completely foreign to me. And over the next 2 years, I basically worked in his home office and helped build out, not like 2 years, maybe like a year. He helped me build out a product A to Z, a low ticket product. And when I went to sell it, I couldn't sell it. I didn't have a big following and I didn't have any money for ads. So I moved up to Utah just to kind of get out of my hometown because that's where I was. And I was really struggling. I was a server at Olive Garden for about, half the day. And then I would go and work on my business. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like I had no clue how to sell it. I thought people would just buy it. And I kind of went on that for almost 2 years where I made about $2,000 and it was nothing.
Two
I sold,
$2,000 in 2 years.
yeah, like
Thousand
total.
dollars $1,000 a year,
Yeah.
$800 a month. Okay.
Yeah. So I was averaging like 25.
$80 a month.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it was nothing. And so then in Utah, they do a lot of security sales. And so they sold me on the dream, like, hey man, you can make, 6 figures in 3 months doing door-to-door sales. And I was like, okay, well, my business isn't working. So if I had money, it would work. That's the lie I told myself at least. So I go do door-to-door
Seems
sales
reasonable.
for about 7 months and I don't make anywhere near what they said. I probably made, 50, 60 G's and I was one of the top reps. And I'm starting to like getting towards the end of the summer. I'm like, man, if I don't figure it out this year, I'm going to go back to school because I'm about to turn 25. And for whatever reason, 25 just sounded so old to me. It's not, but I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. And I saw an ad on Facebook, similar to probably what some people might have seen in me. And it was like, how to build an online fitness business. And I was like, perfect. Like, I've done fitness my whole life. Like, I'll try it. So I click on it, go through the process, get on a call. No idea what high ticket sales were. Sold me, like I was sweating and all that kind of stuff. I put a 2 grand down. That's like all I had, about $2,500 in my bank account, and I did 3 grand on a credit card. Got in the program. They basically just said, "Hey, raise your prices." Right, that was the biggest thing, and I started messaging people on my Instagram, and I made like $10,000 in a week. I was selling like $2,500 program, and then
Let's break that down for a minute because
sure,
that's that's a that's a major turning point for a lot of people. It's like, well,
yeah,
man, I can't make any more money. I can't sell this thing. Nobody wants it.
sure.
Well, just charge more money. All of a sudden, people want it and you make money. It's like the weirdest, it's like the most cognitive dissonance that can be created. So
Yeah.
tell me, like, to the extent, I mean, you've got so much experience on this now,
Yeah.
but that shift from you couldn't sell your one thing $2,000 over 2 years, and then boom, you got $10,000 because you raised your prices.
Yeah.
What happens there psychologically? Why is that so much more significant?
Well, I think the first thing is I thought that people would just click a link on my bio and that's how people got rich. I didn't even know people did phone sales. I was like, so I got to post my link and they have to buy it. So, it sounds so stupid now, but that's just how I thought it worked. And my mentor had sold low ticket products. And so that's what he knew. And so that's what he told me. And so it's funny, but there's a saying that the only things we don't question are the things we believe, right? And so when you believe that something, this is how things are, you don't think to question it. And so I got in that program. They're like, yeah, so you raise your price and get them on a call. I was like, oh, okay, so get them on a call, cool. And I just done door-to-door sales for 6, 7 months, so this was easy because they wanted it. And so I just got on the phone, I went through my process, and I pitched them, and they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, like yeah, let me process this. And I just process it. So it was more, phone sales, there's more trust. So there was that. But then it was just also someone told me I could raise my prices. I thought because everyone else was doing it, that's what you sold your prices at. It's like, oh, that's $50.
Mhm.
And then they were like, yeah, like you need to just sell 3 people out of 100 instead of 80. And so it was all those things combined. But yeah, it was such a simple tweak, but I didn't even know that's how you did it. And then when I figured it out, I was like, wow, it was actually frustrating because I was a little bit elated, but I was actually upset because I was that close for 2 years and I felt like I just wasted 2 years of my life. So I was actually more upset than excited, if I'm being honest. But
So it was kind of like, well, duh, why didn't I just do that years ago? Yeah, hindsight's 2020. And
exactly.
you know, and that's a really important point that you're dissecting here, because I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs in all directions, smart guys, successful guys that are making decent incomes. And even them, they still struggle. A lot of them still struggle with, I'm going to put out my course for $200. I'm going to do some private one-on-one coaching, and I'm going to, meet him once a week, and I'll charge him $2,000 a month, which comes out to about $500 an hour.
Yeah.
And these are smart guys, and their value is through the roof, but they're charging peanuts. And so it's such a difficult hurdle for somebody to overcome in charging what they're truly worth. And do you think that comes from just an insecurity? Like, I'm not sure if I'm worth that. I'm not sure if people are willing to pay that. Where do you think that really comes from?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was more, I didn't think people would pay that. And once I knew people would pay that, I was like, well, why wouldn't I charge the amount of money that I want to make to get the life that I want?
Hmm.
So it's interesting to me that people will struggle to sell something at a price that will get them to where they want to go. Because I realized, I was like, for me to get to 10,000 a month, which was my first goal, is I just need to sell like 4 or 5 of these. And so if people are willing to pay the price, that alone tells you that they think it's valuable enough because they spent their money. That's how you vote. And so to me, as long as you're trying to do the right thing and you're giving a good service, what you charge is highly dependent up to you. The market decides. And so I think it's interesting. People will say, well, I feel bad charging that much, et cetera. It's like, why? If they're willing to pay it and you're going to do a good job, right? Are you going to be a good person? You shouldn't. And my experience is to date, we've had probably 2,500 plus high ticket clients now. And that doesn't include, like, we've probably had like 12 or 13,000 low ticket clients. So these are people who have all spent at least 16 grand typically. Like the people who usually, for me, like after we've gone through it, that don't do well, they don't do it. And we're able to track it. Like we're able to track, like if they've gone through the portals, if they've sent X amount of messages, if they've had X amount of calls. And so it's just like working out, where to me, when I started in fitness, if the client chooses not to listen to me, I personally, at least for me, I don't feel bad, because like what else can I do? Like it's
Mhm.
not, I can't do it for them. And so what happens typically though with higher price things is people are more willing to listen because it hurts. And so people will say, well, oh, they'll listen if it's cheaper. I'm like, no, they won't. They'll care less because it's cheaper. They don't give a shit. Like, excuse my language, they don't give a shit. Like, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. And so I think the irony is that by charging more, not only are you going to get to where you want, so you feel good about delivering the service, but people are more willing to listen to you. So I think it's counterintuitive to think charging less is better, because people don't listen, they don't take it as seriously, and then you feel resentful because you're not getting paid what you want to get paid. That's
Mhm.
how I.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And so you were able to create a successful business in the fitness industry, and then that has transitioned. Kind of, I wouldn't say you've outgrown that, but you've kind of leveraged that into a higher level opportunity. And I'm happy to hear you talk all about that in just a minute. But what I'm curious about now, though, is once you got to that first threshold of success, you hit your 10K a month goal, and you probably exceeded that. Uh, did you just get to this point to where, like, okay, I feel like this is not enough. I feel like I have more to offer the world. What launched you into kind of bigger and bigger and bigger?
I think the first thing is I was terrified I was going to lose it. So I didn't think it was sustainable. I was messaging and doing all kinds of organic strategies, which is fine, but I knew it wasn't sustainable, or I felt it wasn't. I felt like I'm working so much, like I don't want to do this forever. In terms of the bigger opportunities, it's just when you start finding success, people ask you for help. And so I hated business coaches. It's ironic that I became one because I actually loathe business coaches. I like went through programs and I felt like they were so under vastly delivering. And part of that was probably ego, part of that was probably maturity, part of that was probably there was truth to it. But people just saw my success and they're like, hey, dude, especially trainers, because trainers are broke, and they were like, hey man, like, what are you doing? And I was like, blah blah blah. I'm busy, and they're like, dude, please help me. I was like, nah. And then eventually, I had like a list of 10 to 15 people who were like, dude, I'll pay you, $10,000 plus if you just help me. And I was like, what? And they're like, I was like, so as a young guy who's broke, it's hard to turn down that amount of money. And so that's how it started. It was just the fact that people were coming and asking me for help. I'd had a lot of success. And that was after I really learned ads, once I could really get consistent leads with ads. So that's how it started. I had no intention of ever being a business coach by any means.
And so you've kind of hit another threshold that a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble crossing. So there's the pricing barrier, and then there's the investing back into my business specifically for advertising. So there's a lot of guys, especially in fitness, me being a male in his early 40s, I can smell a fitness bro hitting my DMs from like a month. It's like some big old greased up muscle dude, and he's like, hey man, how's it going? You keeping busy there with your ABC business? Like, yeah, man, everything's fine. Man, how do you find time to keep fit? Get in the gym. Like, oh God, another fitness bro. Damn it. I hate those. Like, who is teaching those guys? Is it you, Tanner? If it's you, I got a bone to pick with you.
I sure hope not, because I'll be a lot more smooth than that.
Right. But that's like what these guys are doing. Like, they're all taking some other training that's not yours, that's saying you got to hit them up in the DMs and be like, hey, bro, you got to work with me because I'll make sure that you can get shredded by eating mashed potatoes every day.
Yeah. Right? The issue with like most trainers is like they're very good at what they do. They just have no concept of sales and marketing. And it's hard for them to understand because they think that if they're very good at what they do, that people will pay them. And it has nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, it's all the perception. And so these guys don't want to put any time into learning business acumen. They just want to put all their time into lifting weights and, taking another health test or getting another certification. And I just tell them, guys, it doesn't matter. Like, they don't care. All they care about is like their goal, and you have to be able to talk to them in a way that persuades them. So it's easy. It's easy for the trainers who learn it, because the ones who don't, they beat them every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had various trainers in my life. I haven't been like a super fitness guy, but I decided I wanted, at some point in my life, I realized I no longer wanted to be like a hairy marshmallow. And and so I'm like, maybe I should do something about this. And so I work with trainers, and I can, of all the trainers I've ever had, I've never like checked their credentials. Like, I don't care where they studied, if they have degrees or licenses. I'm like, dude, do you feel me? Do you see and hear my situation? Yes, I got you. I've heard this before. I know how to navigate you through this. Here's the plan that's specifically for you. All right, dude, take my money. I'm like the easiest sell ever.
Yeah. And it's so much in business as sales and marketing. I mean, the product does matter to a degree, but to get someone to buy, they don't know if you have a good product. And that's what I tell people. I say, guys, you can have the world's worst product. They don't know until after they buy. And so to get someone to buy, it has nothing to do with the product until they're convinced that you can help them. So I agree with you 100%. It's like that is something that needs to be the focus for a lot of the business owners, because that's what they lack.
Yeah. And so as far as that kind of that marketing, that switch to where you're like, you know what, I believe that I can help people. and I'm willing to put down money to get eyeballs.
Yeah.
And that's another big hurdle that a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble overcoming. What was it for you when you just said, look, I'm going to pay Facebook or Google or YouTube or whatever, and then to bring me those eyeballs because I know I can convert them? That's a big hurdle for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think there just comes a point in everyone's life where they have to decide who they want to be. And I realized that it was either I was going to keep messaging people 16 hours a day and get arthritis in my fingers, which actually happened, or I'd have to figure out paid traffic so I didn't have to constantly look for leads. And so I was willing to be homeless versus continue to stay where I was. And I just think that's the point everyone has to come to, because when people stay indecisive, they're basically saying that they're more comfortable staying where they're at than worth risking, moving ahead. So for me, it was just as simple as that. I realized that the next step for me was paid traffic. And so I was willing to do anything I had to do and test anything I had to test to figure it out, because I knew that if other people could do it, I could too. And so it was just a logical conclusion that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is the only way forward. So I have no option but to move forward. And I've just always been that way. I should say I've always been that way, but there came that point in my life when I was about to turn 25 when it really just hit me in the face. And it's like, dude, you're running out of time. Your clock's ticking and you've tried it your way and it hasn't worked. So what do you have to lose? And that just feeling has always stayed with me. And it's so interesting. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if you've read it.
I know.
And it's the best book because it goes through and the book is so entertaining. And that at the very end, he's like, this is how stupid humans look when they won't move forward. Because in the book, for anyone who hasn't read it, who's listening, these mice are starving to death. And two of the mice are so, they stay. And the mice who leave says, guys, we're going to die. So what do we have to lose to leave? And they're like, well, what if we don't find more food? He's like, well, if we don't leave, we're going to die anyway. So what does it matter? And I think that's how humans need to view their goals in business and relationships. It's like the worst thing that can happen is like exactly what's happening right now. It can't get any worse. You can always get another job. You can always go make more money, but there's a lot less risk than people perceive. And I think I don't know if there's any way to get there except hit rock bottom or get close to it. Because for me, like rock bottom was like being 25, still not making any money, being laughed at, and I just was done with it. And I decided I was going to figure it out.
Man. Yeah, I love that. It's been a long time since I've even heard about that book, but it's like if anybody's ever taken a sales call, then that's the situation that you're in. Well, I don't know, man. Let me think about this. But yeah, while you're thinking about it, your world around you is getting smaller and your resources are getting thinner.
Yeah.
And that's very hard for us to see sometimes.
Yeah. And just making decisions doesn't take any time. It takes information. And so all people do is delay making the decision that they should have already made. And so like, it's ironic, but we all do this. Is like, the girl you're dating that you're thinking about breaking up with or whatever, like people will just delay and delay and delay because they fear the pain more than just staying exactly where they are. So anyways, I love that book. Thanks for letting me bring it up.
Yeah, man, anytime. Yeah, that's awesome. So fascinating dude here, Tanner. It's this what I'd love to do is get behind those shiny locks and crack your noggin open, do a little do zone diagnostic on your brain there. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So just 5 quick questions here. I ask every guest, rapid fire, first thing that comes to mind. Number 1, what's one thing you do that keeps you focused on your goals?
Write them down, and I keep them right in front of my face.
Nice. And how do you get back on track when you lose that focus?
It's a good question. I think it's just the constant reminder. I don't really lose focus because it's constantly in front of my face. So like wherever you sleep or wherever you work, put the goals in front of your face because you're constantly reminded, and then your mind will go to those things. I don't feel like I lose focus, to be honest with you.
Nice. And who's your support group, Tanner, and how do they keep you accountable?
I'd say my team and my close entrepreneur friends. And what we do is we set OKRs, we set goals for each month, and everyone can see everyone's goals. And so it's kind of peer pressure from the group to make sure everyone's staying accountable, is on track. And if someone isn't, everyone will be like, hey, you're not on track on your goals, what's going on? So it kind of is a team evaluation system.
Nice. Got it. And how do you approach a difficult project that you're not sure how to complete?
I try to reverse engineer it, and I'll try to reverse engineer it into smaller blocks. It becomes a lot more manageable. If I don't know how, then that's when I'll go look for outside sources or consultants to come in and kind of fill in those missing pieces. But take a big goal, break it down into smaller parts. It becomes a lot less overwhelming. It's like my first step.
Awesome. Last question. What's the number one pro tip you'd give to somebody looking to get more stuff done in less time?
Write everything down. I know it sounds simple, but by waking up, you're so distracted by all the social media and things around you. So write everything down that you need to get done for the month, for the week, for the day, and just go through that and cross it off as you go. And you'll find that you will get stuff done so much faster. And then maybe a bonus tip on top of that is set a time limit, right? If you can only work for 6 hours, you'll probably get it done in 6 hours versus giving yourself 8. It's just human nature. When you have deadlines, you'll move faster, you'll stay more on pace. So those will be probably the 2 tips on that.
There's been some scientific studies done on that very topic where I tried to I found this one time, and then I tried to go find it again to reference it, and then it like vanished. So trust me, it exists, I promise. But what it basically said was, if you give somebody a task and you give them a week to do the task, they will take all week. If you give them one task for the day, they'll take all day to do the task. And you can give them 2 tasks, it'll take them all day to do 2 tasks. And they were able to actually test this all the way up to 11. And the breakage started to happen around 7 tasks. So human beings in general can perform about 7 tasks in a day when they're given a list of 7 tasks, they got it. Once they get like 8, 9, or 10, they're like, nah, I can do about 6 or 7, man. But it was interesting when they just kind of found that breakage point to say, actually, you can do about 7 things in a day as long as you tell yourself you got to get these things done. And that was pretty fascinating. And it goes along the lines of what you're saying there. If you give yourself an hour to do something, you're going to finish that bastard in an hour. If you give yourself a month, it's going to take you 29 and a half days to do it.
Yeah. And it's true. And it's ironic because when I was actually playing college football, I was playing college football, Division I football, 18 hours of credits. And I think I finished with the 3.9 GPA. And then the next semester, my first one without football, I took like 12 credits, and I had a lower GPA that semester than I did when I played football. And I had less work and I had less distractions. And it's just what you said, because you just put it off, you put it off, you put it off. You're like, I'll do it later. And with football, I had no time. It was like, I have to do it now. I have to do it now. I've practiced at this, like, and it's ironic, but it pushed me mentally, but I got more stuff done. I was way more efficient.
Right. So, Tanner, let's talk about elite CEOs. This is kind of the next level. You were starting. You had people coming to you and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to pay you for help," and that launched you into a next opportunity and the next one, and into what you're doing now. Tell me a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, so I started, in the fitness business, and that did like $1 million in a year. Then the trainers started coming over. That did like $1 million in 3 months. It was insane. I've never seen anything like it. And then after that, people were like, "Hey, can you show me the same stuff? I'm not a trainer, but I have a business." And so it just kind of progressed naturally. It wasn't like something I looked for. But that's really how Elite CEOs was kind of born. And, now it's leveraged me into new opportunities of like owning portfolio companies and just stepping into an advisory role. But yeah, that's how it started. And I never, I never planned on it. That's the irony. It just kind of happened and fell in my lap. And I think that's what happens though, when you become successful or you start having some success, like new opportunities show up on your doorstep. And I think the smart thing, and as I've learned over time, is you need to stop saying yes to everything. But at the time, it made a lot of sense because I just kept, building blocks on top of the blocks I'd already built. And so that's kind of how this thing grew.
And so it's fascinating that we go through these phases. You said at the beginning here, you had to get a job at Olive Garden,
Yeah.
and then somebody said, "Well, you need to be selling security," and you're like, "Okay," and you
Yeah.
did that, and then somebody showed you how to make a living selling your fitness training, and then the next opportunity and the next opportunity, to the point now where, I've been following you on social media, and where your focus is now, it seems, is not in putting in so many hours, but in how can I really leverage my influence for maximum impact, and
Mhm.
being on those boards and advising other companies and other people, not necessarily getting elbow deep and fixing somebody's business, because you've got people to do that at this point. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of some next level stuff. And that's where we're all aspiring to be. Tell me more about what's really got you passion there now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been helpful for me because a couple of my close friends, they're going through this at the moment, and so it would like I was able to see them go through those phases that I am now, where they built a company and then they moved into like business coaching type deal, or leveraging that, and then selling the information as a license, now almost being a portfolio owner. And the reason for that is just to get to the next level, to continue to increase my financial wealth and just grow, is I cannot be in the day to day. Like I have to have a bigger opportunity. And so the bigger opportunity based on this skill set is to own or have equity in other companies that have similar products or similar services, that I can tell them what to do, that will move the levers exponentially, but they execute the work. And there's going to be other things I do that are, I think, even bigger, but it doesn't make sense for me anymore to be the owner, or the CEO, I should say, of the company, and make 40% profit when I could just be the advisor and make 20 to 25% profit, but I have more leverage to do other things that will then make me more money. And so that's just the name of the game at a certain point, is once you amass a certain level of skills, is yes, keep learning skills, but you need to create leverage by using those skills and allowing other people to do the work. And it took me a few years to figure that out, because when you only have one business, you're so scared to give up equity, you're so scared to give up control. And so I think I wish I had, I won't say it's for most people watching this, so or listening to this, excuse me, so take this with a grain of salt, but I wish I had started my other portfolio companies sooner, because as soon as I did, I realized, I was like, well, shoot, like I'm barely doing anything here and I'm collecting a check. All I'm doing is advising. Oh my gosh, this is the next thing. Like this makes way more sense, because I'm not in these day-to-day activities running the whole business. And so it's just creating that leverage that allows you to exponentially grow your income, because you're not having to, you're able to do more than one thing, right? And you're able to leverage the team. And so it took me a long time to do that. It also takes a little bit of maturity, because you have to learn that you have to pay people well to get them to do that, because we're all so serious about our profit margins that we just want to pay everyone as little as possible. And I had to learn that it's okay to pay a little more and to give up a little more, a bigger piece of the pie, for the overall encompassing benefits. So hopefully that answered your question.
Very much so, yeah.
Cool.
And so I want to wrap up. I have two big questions that I think might be burning questions in everybody's mind that's listening to this. So first, about your company, your training and coaching company that you have now. I know that you've been wildly successful with that, and it's growing exponentially every year. And for those of you who are not watching us on video, I'm counting at least 5 2 Comma Club awards, 2,6. He was hiding one. 2, like the 2, X Club. I can't remember what that was called, but this is a guy that's been very successful in his business. Do you have what would you say if somebody were to ask you, what 3 things do I need to focus on to build an 8-figure company? Like, what are the 3 essential things to take me from wherever I am to a successful 8-figure company?
That's a great question. So typically, to get to 8 figures, what I've seen is you need to have one good product. You don't need more than one. You just need one good product. You typically will need a couple traffic sources. So that could be Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, for example. And then you need a team. And the biggest bottleneck is actually not 0 to 100, it's 100 to a million. And the reason is because most entrepreneurs are not good at leading, they're not good at hiring, and they definitely are not good at training. And so if you can learn how to lead and build a team and find top talent, hitting those goals becomes exponentially easier, because instead of you having to do everything yourself, you're able to rely on other people, and especially, excuse me, if they're proactive, meaning they come up with ideas without you having to spoon feed them. And I will tell you, that is the biggest bottleneck by far and away at the entrepreneurs at the 7-figure level who are trying to get to 8, 100%.
Yeah, I took a lot from that. So you said not zero. It's the biggest bottleneck is not 0 to 100. So like from nothing to, let's say, 100,000, but it's 100,000 to 1,000,000, because that requires you to not be 100% involved in every facet of it.
Yeah, like at 100,000 a month, you can pretty much run everything with 2 or 3 employees, probably max. At 1,000,000 a month, it's impossible. And so you have to rely on other people. But the problem is if you're a bad leader, or you can't train, or you can't hire, or you don't have operations and SOPs in place, it creates a very hectic environment. And I've looked behind the curtains of some companies that are, oh, I'm doing 500 a month, I'm doing 400 a month. It's an absolute nightmare. I mean, it's a shit show. And I would never go out and blast anyone, but it like, the problem is their leadership skills and their personality. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, and there's definitely things I can improve on constantly. But I think, like, it took me a few years, but I have a really good team, and I have really hardworking people, and they have really good traits. And it's just like having to learn how to create that culture and attract top talent. When we put out job posts, we get top talent. People want to work here. And that takes time, I think, to build, and it takes skill of learning how to deal with people. So
yeah, nice. And then thank you for that. That was very great. So, and then the last question about your current passion about making an impact and taking that kind of advisory role. Do you have any tips for somebody who maybe has run some successful businesses and is looking to step away from being that day-to-day person and taking on more of that advisory role? Do you have any kind of tips or best practices for how to start navigating their business and their career path in that direction?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest things is, one, make sure that, I mean, the CEO you choose is everything. The person you decide to become a portfolio is everything, because if you do not set the proper expectations, they will expect you to grow the business. And that is not your job. Your job is to tell them what to do, and they're to execute. So I went through a couple partnerships that I ended 3 months in, because it ended up being that I became the CEO, which was not what it should be, right? It should be, you come with the skill set, you come with the knowledge, and they execute. So the first thing is, like, make sure the CEO you choose has the characteristics and traits you look for. Hard work. They want to grow. They're not just, motivated by hitting a certain number of revenue. They truly want to grow a great business, and they have other things that drive them besides the money. Because if they hit that certain revenue number and that's all they care about, the second they get there, they're going to stop pushing. Number two is, making sure you usually take a minority stake. You take too much equity, at some point they're going to become disgruntled, right? Especially if you're not doing a lot. So I usually would recommend is take no more than 30%. It can vary. I do have some portfolios where I have more than that, but it's more of a special situation for various reasons. So that would be my second thing. And then the third thing is, make sure you build up your network and brand enough that people want to associate. And so, years ago, I thought people, like, especially on Clubhouse, remember when Clubhouse came out, and like people get on there like branding or advertising, and I would just get so annoyed when people would say branding, because I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, you don't even make any money. You have no, like, you're not even able to keep your lights on. Yeah. But the interesting thing is, advertising or direct marketing will get you money quickly, fast, right? Branding will get you the big money. And so as like I've matured, and I've been in internet marketing now 5 years in like September, I think, I see that now, like, if I can start really putting a lot of time and effort into creating my brand over the next 5-10 years, those opportunities start showing up more, because that's what people associate with your name. They associate, like, what does this guy bring to the table? What has he done? And so if you've done a lot of great things, but no one knows you exist, it can still be difficult. So one of the things that's helped me amass these portfolios is like partially of what I've done, because I've also built this kind of like farming system of these coaches and service providers who then I'm like, hey, which of you guys wants me to take equity? And there's people raising their hand each and every day. And so I just would tell people be more cognizant of that, because to get to higher levels, like Grant Cardone, and I'll wrap up on this, saw him in Miami. Everyone wants to partner with Grant. Why? His branding, his reach, his promotion, his engagement, his eyeballs. And so if you can become that person, it's infinitely easier to become extremely wealthy from what I've seen and what I'm experiencing than if you're someone who no one knows exists. And so fame is like one of the easiest ways to arbitrage wealth. And you like, look at the Paul brothers. They're doing like 50, 60 million a year just because of the amount of eyeballs they get. So hopefully that makes sense. Those are kind of the 3 tips that I'd kind of leave everyone with.
Awesome. I love that. And so we hit kind of the 3 tips for growing an 8-figure company, and then the 3 tips for elevating yourself into that advisory equity stake role. And that was transformational for me. Thank you so much. I am curious, but right before we wrap up here, I want to hear, who are you looking to engage with right now, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah. I mean, like any business owners, business owners who want help, business owners who want to give up equity. Business owners who just want to connect and, grow. Like I was extremely stimulated. I went to Grant Cardone's event. It was a free event. It was invite only. And it was extremely stimulating for me, just because there were guys there doing 11 million a month. It was insane. And so,
that's legit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like being a big fish in an even bigger pond is fun, and it's inspiring for me. But yeah, the best way to reach me is like my social media is like YouTube would be the best, or Instagram. But if you guys are trying to connect, YouTube or Instagram at Tanner Chittister would be 2 best ways.
Awesome. And just out of curiosity, tell us really quick about, you have a book on Amazon called Infinite Income. What's that about?
Yeah, so it's just kind of A to Z my journey, and in hindsight, I wish I had spent more time on it now. But I feel pretty proud of it, just like in terms of it's my journey. Like it talks a little bit about my personal story, but then it also talks exactly what I did to get to where I'm at, and it has tactical and strategic things in there. As well as you could possibly do in a book. In hindsight, I wish I had put some links in there with like to a video, and I'm like so stupid now. But in terms of the book, like it goes through, and I go through how I did my sales pitch, how I messaged, how I found leads. Like it goes through that. And so, it's like, I don't know, like $7, $20, $1, depending on what platform you buy it on. And that was kind of my goal, is just try to help people with it, especially those who don't have a lot of funds and they're trying to get their businesses off the ground.
Awesome. So Infinite Income, you can find that on Amazon and various other places then. Awesome. Yeah, Tanner, this has been really awesome. I so much appreciate your time, sir. Sure. Tanner Chittister, everybody. Appreciate you coming on here and sharing some wisdom about how you get stuff done. To learn more and to connect with Tanner, he has a ton of content out there. You can go to tannerchittister.com, or you can find him on YouTube or other social media outlets. Once again, if you want to keep hearing great content like this, be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. And don't forget to get your own personal Do Zone DNA by visiting dozonedna.com. Until next time, remember, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours?